Well, hello. It's midweek and it's hot. And that's not news in either way, but I hope you're doing okay. There is some good news that we're going to be able to meet together on Sunday. So I hope that if you're able and feel comfortable with it, you come on to our worship meeting at 10 o'clock there at Linkside. And again, if you don't, stay home. Don't worry about it if it feels better to you to do that. We will be doing virtual worship again as we have been, but if you can come, we'd love to have you. Bring your mask and come to church. This Sunday, I'm dealing with another virtue. In fact, we talked a little bit about faith not long ago, and faith is one of those 7 virtues that we learned as a child, going all the way back to the Greek world, which I think still are accurate for us as Christians in our Christian faith. There's wisdom, there's faith, there's hope, there's love, there's justice, there's temperance, and there's courage. And that's where I want to be on Sunday with you. I can't think of a better time for us to steel up our courage than in these days we live in. But it's always a good time to be courageous. It's what keeps us moving forward toward the other virtues. We cannot have the other virtues without courage. We can't live in God's will without courage. It's the most important, I think, in many ways, active virtue that we have. I read this definition today of courage. Courage is not to be fearless. We will have fear. Rather, it is to move toward that which makes us afraid. Move forward in our fear regardless. Courage is the inner strength that helps us to be whom God has created and called us to be. So on Sunday, I'll talk about 3 kinds of courage that I think are biblical. Our reference in the Bible will be Psalm 27, 1 through 5. That's a familiar passage that I hope you'll glance at before Sunday. Also in the New Testament, a reference would be John 16, verses 31 through 33. But there are many, many places in the Bible that we can think through courage. I will basically be reminding you of the types of courage, at least 3 that we can think about as we live out our faith. The first, obviously, is physical courage. It just takes physical courage sometimes to get through this life, things that are risky to us physically, that frighten us, that we have to move through. In this time of COVID virus, I think of a lot of physical courage that's going on. I have friends who are nurses and doctors, and I have friends who are teachers and school administrators. I have friends in government. I have friends who have been sick from this virus and have had to overcome it physically, and it's a frightening thing. But what each would probably tell you is what they are trying to lean on is their physical courage. And we'll talk a little bit about what the Bible says about physical courage. Then there's moral courage. Moral courage is making right choices no matter what the outcome might be for us, and particularly choosing to do right in times when if we just stayed out of it, we wouldn't be affected. That takes a special kind of moral courage to say and do what's right when we would be safer not to. So we're going to think about moral courage, offering to do what is right in God's world. And then last, I'm going to borrow a phrase from the theologian Paul Tillich, who wrote a great little book called The Courage to Be. And in his thesis, he believes, and I would agree with him, that most of our courage that we have to live out and that shapes us is not events that require physical courage or even the regular events of moral courage, though they're just as important. He says it's in the day-to-day living that we have to find the courage to be. What is it that we are supposed to be? And frankly, what is it that threatens us from being our best selves as God has made us? What are those things that we have to overcome every day? He mentions 3 that threaten everyone when they're trying to get through this life. The first he mentions is death or loss. Those things can really try us and keep us from being who we are called to be. They are difficult, and it takes courage to plow through death and loss. Second, he talks about meaninglessness. People who find themselves, as we talked about last week a little bit, just not wanted, or at least feeling that way, or finding in their life that things are overwhelming them so that they are in despair and they don't feel like they have any purpose or any energy to go on. Depression, doubt, fear. Third is guilt and shame for Tillich. He says for us to have the courage to be who God made us to be, we have to learn to overcome guilt and shame. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So I hope you're able to come for physical worship. That would be great to see you. As I said last Sunday, I believe, it'll be great when Janet and I finally get to put faces and names together of regulars who come, and then the joy of meeting so many people from so many different places that make up our gathering. But we've done the right thing here. We've had courage to admit that this is an unusual time, and as much as we love being together, we've had the courage to say it's time to put it to rest for the safety of everyone. And now we're going to make an effort to come back to be together in a safe way as possible. So I hope you have a great week. I hope you can come be with us or just catch the worship virtually if that is better and safer for you. God bless you today.